Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Malchus, and we're up
Yeah,
to Dalid 14. We're just going to start from Daf Yigimel Amid Beis Ruva Uma. So we're talking about over here that we had a machlekes between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yishmael holds on top of the page that when you give Misa to somebody, before you give the Misa, you give him Malchus. So let's say somebody is Mechal Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yishmael, every Malchus, every Misa, you get a Malchus with it. If someone, let's say, is Boil and Ashes Ish, he's also going to get Malchus. So the Gemara says, how could that be? Rabbi Kiva seems to argue, and how could that be? Rabbi Kiva holds that the Torah only gives you one punishment, not two punishments. So that's why Rabbi Akiva disagreed with Rabbi Yishmael. That's what the Gemara understood before. Okay. Hi, Alan. We just begun. So we were discussing over here yesterday. We were discussing yesterday the machlekes between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Where Rabbi Yishmael holds that if someone, let's say, is mezana with an eshes ish, so before you give him chenek, you give him malchus also, because you chayev two things, malchus and misa. And Rabbi Akiva is held. How could that be? How could that be? With only one dish, you only get one punishment, not two punishments. That's what the opinion of that is the Rabbi Rabbi Yishmael. That was the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara says that was the one way to learn the machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. So the Rava says like this: ask that really nobody holds that you get misa and malchus. Even Rabbi Yishmael wouldn't hold that. But the machlekes between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is the following situation: Asre Bey Liktola. They only warned him for misa for misa. Let's say a person's boiler basis ish. They told him you're going to get chanek. Kuli almalei pligi. Everybody, nobody disagrees. The ain loikil mace. You don't get malchus, and you get the death penalty. That's not a disagreement. You don't give malchus and the death penalty. You just give them the death penalty. Ki pligi. When are they arguing the aser rebela malchus? They warn the guy who's mezana with Aisha says, "Oh, by the way, you're going to get malchus." Oh, so are you going to give him malchus? Rabbi Shmuel holds lav shenit in lahazoris mises bezin like olive. Since there is a lav that told you don't mizana with an Aisha ish, so if you're not going to give him mises bezdin, so you can give malchus. If the warning was about malchus, you would give him malchus. Rabbi Kiva holds lav shenit in lahazoris mises bezdin ain like an olive. Lav that was for azoris mises bezdin. If the Torah says the punishment is death penalty, you can't make up your own punishment of malchus. So Rabbi Akiva, so the Gemara asks the question, but wait a second, you said our Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, and in our Mishnah it says clearly that for Chayve Karis, let's give an example for Chiv Krisis. A Chiv Krisis would be, let's say, someone who's Mizana with his sister. Rabbi Akiva holds that although they kill you b'dei shemayim, you get Karis, you get you get Malchus. But why didn't Rabbi Kiva says Rabbi Kiva ihachi chayve krisis nami? Let's say chayve krisis lav shenit lazaris karasihu. That the lav only tells you that you're getting is to warn you that don't do this avera because you're going to get karis. So it's not to give you malchus. You can't use it to say, oh, if they warned you about malchus, you're going to get malchus instead of the karis. They explained in the name of Rava that Rabbi Kiva holds chayave krisis letzricha hasra. When someone is over an avera of chayave krisis, he doesn't need to be warned. The fact that the Torah says don't, the fact that the Torah says not to do it, you don't need to warn the person not to do it. Why? Sharei Pesach Hamila. Let's take example: eating the carbon Pesach or having a bris milah. If someone decides not to do that, the less behazara, nobody's going to warn you, oh, you're going to get karis if you don't eat the carbon Pesach or you don't give yourself a bris milah, and you get karis anash avol pishla yizer, even if you're going to get the lav, even though you're not going to get even though there is no punishment there. So chayvik krisis doesn't need a hasra. So if the fact that on a lav, on a chayve krisis avera, the Torah wrote a lav, it's teaching you that you're going to get malchus. That's what Rabbi Kiva holds. Says the Gemara v'dilma hazara lekarbon. Maybe the hazara by a chayve krisis means that if you teaches you that if you do by accident, if you mazana with your sister by accident, you get a carbon. But if you do it on purpose, you're not going to get malchus. The Pesach mistel last leazar like ma'isa carbon. The fact is that a Pesach mila which get a krisis don't get a carbon because there's no lav there. But the fact that the Torah wrote, let's say by your mazana with your sister, you get a lav. Is the Torah is teaching you should bring a carbon if you do it by mistake, but you still don't have a source to teach you that if you're going to do it on purpose and you can get a malchus. And says the Gemara, Hasam lav haini time. The reason why Pesach Hamila don't bring a carbon, the Torah, all the mitzvahs are compared to the avera of avodah zarah. Avera of avodah zarah. If you do it by mistake, you bring a carbon. But ma avodah zarah sheval taise avkol sheval taise lapuke hanach kimbase. Avodah Zarah, when you're over in Avodah Zarah, it's with a sheval taise. The Torah tells you, don't do the Avodah Zarah. And you do the Avodah Zarah, you get the Avera of Avodah Zarah, therefore by mistake, you have to, by b'shoigig, you have to bring a carbon. But Pesach Hamila, the reason why you're not bringing a carbon is not because it didn't say a lav. It's because it's not similar to Avodah Zarah, because the way to violate Pesach Hamila is not doing what you're supposed to do. So since it's not similar to Avodah Zarah, that's why you don't bring a carbon. So really, a person's mzanas with a sister, certainly it would bring a carbon if he does it by mistake. So why did the Torah write, don't stay with your sister a lav? The reason is to teach you that in addition to getting karis, you're going to also get malchus. And that is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. One more point. Ravina says, no, you don't have to say that that the argument is if you're going to get one punishment or two punishments. Ravina says, we're going to say over here, we go to Yidal Amar Aleph, that we said that the reason of Rabbi Akiva is, the reason why by Chayve Mises Bezdin you don't get Malchus is because we don't give you two punishments. And Rabbi Shmuel says you do get two punishments, Malchus and Misa. And you were warned for both. Also, tshuva, even if you did tshuva, Bezdin shel mala moichlin lehem. The interesting thing is that when a person is over an avera of kares, if he does tshuva, so then they forgive you upstairs. So therefore, when Bezdin gives you malchus, you only get one punishment, not two punishments. As opposed to a Mises Bezdin, there's no such thing you do tshuva. So they're giving you Misa Bezdin right away. They're giving you Misa. So Bezdin can only give you one punishment, not two punishments. But here, by krisis, if a person does tshuva, he can absolve himself from the karas aspect. So therefore, Bezdin could give him malchus as well for being over an avera that has karas. My amrit, you can say halay asa tshuva, halay avet tshuva. He didn't do tshuva. So l'maisa, a person who's mazana with a sister could potentially get two punishments if you're going to give him malchus. He's going to get the malchus, plus he's going to get the karas if he didn't do tshuva. And says the Gemara, like psikle milsa lekaris, it's not guaranteed he's going to get the karas. There's always a good chance that he will do tshuva, and therefore when Bezdin gives him the malchus, it's only one punishment. So let's review, and then we go further. Rabbi Shmuel is the strictest case. He says by command, all lavim in the Torah, a person's going to get malchus, even if the lav that you are over was a Mises Bezdin. Person's mezana with an Ashes Bezdin is going to give you, according to the way, some of the ways that we learned, they're going to give you two punishments, malchus and misa. Rabbi Kiva holds no. Only by every lav will get malchus, but a lav that has karas in it, only a lav that has karas, you will get malchus and karas if you don't do tshuva. But a lav sheyesh be Mises Bezdin, there's only Mises Bezdin. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, now comes this third opinion. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Chayave krisis, no matter what, only lav, a regular lav, like say you don't eat nevela, only then you get malchus. Only if you eat, then you get malchus. If you're over an avera, like sleeping with your sister, so even because there's a chayve karis to that, you're not going to get you're not going to get any chorus. You're not going to get any malchus because Rabbi Yitzchak says chayve krisus b'chlal hoyo v'lama yatzos chorus b'choisoi l'donim b'chorus v'loy b'malchus. So as you can see on the screen over here, if you look at the parsha of Arayis, the Torah lifts you off all the Arayis of the Torah. Then the Torah ends off the nichrusu. If you do any of these Arayis, obviously, some of them get Misa, Bezdin, but if there was no warning, if there was no Edim, you're going to get Karis. Then the Torah somewhere else singles out that if you slip, you take your sister, you also get Karis. So why did the Torah single out your sister? It's already included in all the other Arayas. Why did the Torah say that you get that? You get Karis. The Torah is teaching you, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, that just like when you sleep with your sister, you're only going to get chorus and not malchus. So every time you have an isser that has a lav that has a chayve krisis, you're only going to get chorus and no malchus. Rabbanim, this Rabbanim means Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel, who holds by a chayve krisis you would get malchus. Chorus b'choisei lamali. So then why did the Torah single out again by zana with your sister? You get chorus. And says the Gemara Lechalik to teach you a new din, that if someone was mizana with all these arayas, every single one, and he didn't know, it was all by accident, you have to bring lechalik. You're going to have to bring a separate carbon for each and every one of them. Similar to the idea that you do all the malachas Shabbos, you're going to bring a separate carbon. Like Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan taught us, if you do all the arayas and with one, you didn't know about it. You weren't thinking, and you did this arayas and that arayas. You didn't know it's usher in the Torah by accident. So chayva kol achas uchachas, you're going to have to bring a carbon for each and every one. So that's what Achaise teaches you. It's davar that was in the klal, and the Torah separated it to teach you that you're going to chayiv separately for your sister, and it teaches you on the rest of the klal, the rest of the rule, that each one of them that you do by mistake, and it's all with one helam, one not paying attention, you're going to have to bring a carbon on each and every one of the arayas. So now the Gemara is that's the whole daf. The whole daf is about asking back and forth. Rabbi Yitzchak l'chalek minole. How does Rabbi Yitzchak know this idea that you separate each of the arayas? Nafkale, he learns it. Vel isha benidas tumasa. The Torah could have said, the Torah says don't have relations with a nida. But the Torah did not say ulanida don't loisikrav. The Torah wrote vel isha, a woman who is a nida tuma. What does it separate the word el isha, a woman? The chayv I'll call isha v'isha. On every one of the arayas, you get a separate carbon. If you did it once and every one of the arayas, you get a separate carbon. So that's what they know. So now the Gemara is going to ask back. Why don't they learn it from Ve'alisha Benidas Tumasa L'chayva Kol Isha Isha? Why don't they learn it from the same source of Rabbi Yitzchak? The Gemara says, yeah, you're right. They have it from that same source. L'chayva Kol Isha L'chalik is from Elisha Benidas Tumasa. So now the Gemara asks back, then again, what does Karas being singled out by your sister teach you? So the Gemara says, that if you're mazana with your sister or your father's sister or your mother's sister, so if you mazana with these three separate people, you have to bring three separate karbanos. So the Gemara Pshita, of course, Hare Gufa Mechulakim, Hare Shemus Mechulakim. They have their separate individuals, and they're separate. Each one has a separate Isser. One of them is your sister, one of them is your father's sister, one of them is your mother's sister. So you do all three, you have to bring three separate karbanos. So that's pretty obvious. Ella, we're talking about one person who has three Isurim on them. We may have seen this in Yavamas, but this case, there could be a Rasha, the son of a Rasha, that happens to have that son of the Rasha was mizana with somebody who has three Yisurim on them. Take, for example, you have a Rasha, okay, the middle guy over here in the screen. He's mizana with his mother. He slept with his mother and had two daughters, right? So basically, they're his sisters because they share a same mother. And now one of the sisters that he's mizana with his daughters now, and he has a son. So now that son is called a Ben Rasha. So, and he's Mizana with his mother's sister, which is basically his aunt. So if you think about it, this lady to this boy is his father's sister. Okay, it's his sister because they share a common father, and it's his mother's sister. So this woman has three names on them. So since this woman has three names, if you mazana with this woman by accident, okay, this is all hypothetical, but that's Torah. If you mazana with that accident, that's what you will. That's what the pasuk is teaching you. You'll have to have three karbanas, and it's different because here you have three names on one body. So therefore, that's what the Torah is teaching you, according to the Rabbanim, that the Torah is singled out achoisai. If you have one person who has three isurim on them, you have three karbanas for that one woman. Frank the Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak Hamanole, how does he know that idea? And for the Gemara, Nafkalami Kalvachoimer, he has a Kalvachoimer. He has a kal v'chaymer. He doesn't need a pasuk to teach you that idea that if you have one woman with three names, you chayiv. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, "Sha'altis Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua be'itla shel emoim." I asked Rabbi Akiva said, I asked Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua. They were both in a marketplace that sold meat. Now, what were they doing in the marketplace? What was Rabbi Gamliel in a marketplace that's selling meat? They went to purchase an animal for the chasana of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. So you think that they are very busy, and Rabbi Kiva meets them there and asks them a real complicated halacha question. Habala chaysa, a person is mezana with a sister, she chayis aviv, which is a sister of his father, she chayis ima, if it's a sister of his mother. Mahu chayiv akul al achas, are you chayiv only one carbon, or you ain't chayiv al kol achas achas, are you chayiv for each carbon? Amulai, so they told him, despite being busy, it's important to answer halacha. Zulai shemanu, we're not sure, but al shemanu, we have a kalvachayma. If you if you're mazana with five different women, and each one of those women are a nida, let's say five girls, unmarried girls, they're all nidas. For each one of them, you're going to bring a separate carbon. So the near that and that's written in the pasuk. And now I can bring your question from a kal v'chayma. Ma nida shu shem echad. A nida is just one name. For each of those women, chayiv al kol achas v'achas, you're going to mechayiv in a separate carbon. So for one woman, sheshloish shemesh, you have three different isurim. It's not one isur. It's not just nida. It's a choiseh, chois aviv, and a chois ima. It's all these three things. Certainly, like kol shkein, certainly you're going to be chayiv for each one of them a separate carbon. So since Rabbi Yitzchak learns this idea from a regular kal v'chayma, so he has a choisai, the fact that the Torah singled out a choisai for karis to teach you some other idea, to teach you another idea, that you don't get malchus when the lav has a karis attached to it. V'idach, what about Rabbanan? Why don't they learn this idea from the kal v'chayma? And says the Gemara, kal v'chayma pricho. This is a mistaken kal v'chayma, because like you can even see it for yourself. Mal nida shekain gufa muchlaken. A nida has separate. There are separate bodies over there. That's why you have a different carbon. You're talking about a person who's on with five different women, so therefore you're bringing five separate carbonas. But not mashenkin, if you mazana with one woman who happens to have three names on her, how do you know you get three separate karbanas? So that's why the Rabbanan need that. So even according to Rabbi Yitzchak, kavade kal v'chayma prichi. It's a very shvera kal v'chayma. Ella nafkale me'achoisei desefes. How does he know this idea of the one body with three different names? Because there's an extra word achoisei in the end of a pasuk. Back onto the screen where the Torah says, "V'ish ayika basa choisei basa aviv basa imoy v'rosav vasav." He says, "V'chaser huv nichosei l'einei bnei Amram ervas achoisei gila." So here the Torah repeats the word a sister to teach you that an extra word that teaches you that if a woman has three different names on her, you have three different karbanas. So that's what Rabbi Yitzchak knows. V'idach and the Rabbanan, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel, what did they do with that? Achoisei the Sefer Lamali. What did they do with that extra achoisei at the end of the pasuk? L'chayva al achoisei bas aviv or bas imoy loymer she'ein ein shemidim. That pasuk is teaching you an interesting thing. That to teach you that if you chayiv to a chorus if you mazana with your regular sister, who's the daughter of your father or your daughter of your mother. Because really, when the Torah tells you that you get chorus, the Torah is funny like that. The Torah tells you, let's look at the pasuk. Let's say the Torah tells you when you mazana with your sister. So the Torah tells you, Ervas av choischa, if you mazana with your sister, is she bas avicha or bas imecha? Either she's your father, your sister through your father's side, or your sister through your mother's side. That's an irser. Then you get chorus. The pasuk says chorus. But how do you know if you're mazana with both your father, a sister who's both your sister through your father and mother? You share both parents. How do you know you get chorus lad? Are you going to make a kal v'chaim? If you share one parent, you get chorus. So if you share certainly two parents, you should get chorus. We have a rule: ein oinshin bin adim. We don't make our own kal v'chaimas to make up punishments. So that's why the Torah wrote an extra choisai in that pasuk in the pasuk of sister, and another place where the Torah wrote an extra word choisai to teach me that Yechayev, even for Yechayev chorus, even for a sister that you share both parents with. Now, the Gemara asks back, okay, that makes sense according to Rabbanan. The Idach, Rabbi Yitzchak, how does he know that? He learns that just like the Lav says here, when the Torah says don't sleep with your sister, the Torah did not make a differentiation between if it's a sister from one parent. The Torah says don't sleep with your sister anytime. Right? Doesn't matter if it's a sister from one parent. So also by the punishment of chorus, we're going to assume that the Torah was not, particular about it. Even his sister that's you share both parents, you're still going to get the chorus. So it's a logical thing. That's what Rabbi Yitzchak is going to hold. The Ibayasem, if you want, I can tell you another reason how Rabbi Yitzchak will hold. Nafkalei, we go to Amid Beis, Ma'achoisai de Reisha. There's an extra achos in the beginning of the pasuk, because the pasuk could have said ki yikach asbas ovi bas imai. Right? The Torah says v'ish asher yikach asher choisai. You hear bas ovi bas imai. Why does it say this achoisai in the beginning of the pasuk? So that's also extra, right? So that's also extra. So what does that teach you? So that teaches you that idea that you have an extra achos in the beginning of the pasuk. Oh, now that you introduce an extra choisei in the beginning of the pasuk, you got to go back to Rabbanon. What do they do with that? V'idach ahu mibayolei lechalik chorus lemafatem lasach. To give you chorus, you get two lavim. That means that you get two karbanas. If you do, you mafatem lasach. The Torah tells you don't make the recipe of the shemen mishcha, and don't smear yourself. So what happens if a person does both? So the Torah told you that in one pasuk, the Torah said that you get chorus. So I would think that what happens if you just do the recipe without the sicha, or would you get chorus? Here the Torah says, and then the Torah says, if you do that, you get nichras. But the Torah didn't say nichras for each one of them. So how do I know that each one gets its own chorus? So that there's an extra choisoi by arayas, where it's extra word there. So if you don't need it there to separate it out, you put it for mafatem usach. And then the Gemara says, "Idach." What does Rabbi Yitzchak do with that extra choisoi of the reisha? How does he know? I'm sorry, mafatem and asach. Savak Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yishia. Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yishia. You don't need it. I know automatically the fact that the Torah wrote it twice. The Torah said don't make the recipe and don't shmear. Even though the Torah said you get chorus only one time, the Torah meant to say that each lav is separate. The Ibaya same, if you want, I can tell you, Yitzchak does not hold like Rabbi Lazar. And he knows, but Nafkalei, he has another pasuk to teach me that Mafatem Masach get two separate karbanas. Because the Ish Asher Yishkav is Isha Dava. There's a pasuk that says that a nida gets creases. Now, why do you need two psukim that tells you that your nida will get karis? If you don't need it for here by Arayas, to separate it out, to say chalukim, you put it by mafatim and asach. That somehow this is going to teach you that mafatim and asach are counted as two different things. The idach and Rabbanan, what do they do? V'yishka es yishka isha dava. What does they use that pasuk? Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum, Rabbi Shimon ben Yechai. Nayin, how do I know shein isha tmei yetze madva derech ervasa? How do I know that a woman does not become tamei nida only if the blood leaves her womb? So how do I know that? Maybe if the blood leaves her belly button, she becomes a nida. Shenema, the pasuk says, "Isha shishka ish yishkav isha davar," by the flow. Vigilas ervasa, it has to be by the erva. That's when the blood is a problem. But lame, that teaches isha. Inisha Tameya Madva Derech Harvarsa. So that's what I need that pasuk to teach you. Maybe that's what the Rabbanan use that pasuk. Maybe Rabbi Yitzchak will hold that no, she becomes tamei anytime blood leaves, even if it's coming out of her side, she becomes a nida. So the bottom line is, back and forth how to use each one of the drushes, and because Rabbi Yitzchak had an extra drasha, the bottom line is Rabbi Yitzchak has the achoisoi to teach you that you never give malchus by lav that has chorus, a lav that has mises bezdin. You only give malchus when it's only a lav. Okay, Rabbi Kiva is the second opinion. He holds in between. Not only a regular lav gets malchus, but even a lav sheyesh by chorus will also get malchus. And Rabbi Shmuel, according to some of the ways that we were learning, is the most strictest of them all. That even a lav that has mises bezdin attached to it, so the guy's going to get the death penalty anyway. We're going to give him a malchus before. We're going to stop right here for this, and then I'm going to continue this onto the recording, and then I'll post it. So the Gemara continues with the next sugya. The Gemara says like this: we learned in the Mishnah that tamei she'achal es a kodesh, a tamei that eats kodesh, is one of the examples of avera that there's kares, and with the author of Hamisha, which is Rabbi Kiva, is you're going to get also malchus. So a tamei that eats hegdish, right? So bishla mahabal migdash tamei. So I understand. The Gemara just wants to know, where did the Torah tell you now a tamei is not allowed to eat kodesh? If you come into the base of Mikdash when you're tamei, ksiv einish, the Torah tells you a punishment. Uksiv azara, the Torah tells you not to do that. Einish the ksiv es mishkan Hashem timei v'nichrasa. The Torah says if you matame the base of Mikdash, you get kares. Azara, where did the Torah tell you a lav? Leitamu es machneihem. Don't defile those camps. Ela tamei she'achal es a kodesh, a tamei that eats hegdish. Bishlam einish. I understand you're going to get kares if you eat hegdish when you're tamei. The nefesh hashteichel bochso mizevach hashlamim ashel Hashem, and a tumaser love, and it's a nefesh that has tamei eats a shlamim. Minichrosa, you get kares. El azar minayim. When the Torah tell you not to do that, Torah gives you the punishment, but we have a rule that the Torah has to tell you that it's usher to do that, and then tell you that if you do that, you're going to get the punishment. So where is the pasuk that says you're not allowed to eat kachim when you're tamei? So Rish Lakish says b'chol kodesh leisiga. Even though it says you're not supposed to touch any kodesh, what it means is you're not allowed to eat kachim. That's what Rish Lakish learned. Rabbi Yochanan said, Tanu Bardula. He said, Bardula taught us, Asi tumasei. See, it says the tumasei alav, right? We'll put a green over here. The tumasei alav by somebody who walked into the base of Mikdash to eats kachim, right? And it also says the tumasei alav. It says also by somebody who walks into the base of Mikdash, the tumasei alav. And the nichsa, it says oy tumasei boy. If you walked in the base of Mikdash and while you're tamei, Mala Halan, just like walking into the base of Mikdash, we know you have an oinish and a hazar. The Torah told you the punishment, and the Torah gave you a separate lav, litamos machanehem. So also, so also by tamei that eats kachim, there's an oinish and an azhara. So there's a punishment, even though the Torah is not there is not a clear pasuk, but there's somehow a gzeira shava that says Also by Bechol Kodesh, that by Kachim, if someone eats Kachim, there is an Hazara, a warning. So the Gemara says, so basically Rabbi Yochanan learned it from Gzeir Shava, and Rish Lakish had a clear pasuk that says Bechol Kodesh Leisiga, which means don't touch it, but we're going to learn it as it means don't eat Kachim when you're tummy. Right? It's talking about a woman, a woman that just gave birth. The Torah tells you don't eat kachim. Bishlam Rish Lakish le'amak Rabbi Yochanan. I understand Rish Lakish did not learn like Rabbi Yochanan Gzeir Shava le'gamir. He didn't have this Gzeir Shava, so he didn't have this Gzeir Shava, and that's why he didn't buy with Tumasai. He needed to have a separate pasuk of a kol kodesh leisiga to teach you that you're not allowed to eat kachim when you're tummy. El Rabbi Yochanan, my tamar le'omek Rish Lakish. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say like Rabbi Lakish? There's a clear pasuk, but kol kodesh, don't touch it, don't eat it when you're tummy. Amalach, so Rabbi Yochanan will say to you, who that pasuk is a hazara l'truma, that a tummy who is tummy is not allowed to eat truma. That b'chol kodesh doesn't refer to like a shlomim; it's referring to truma. So now the Gemara asks back again. Rish Lakish, this is the whole theme of the daf. Azar truma minolahu. How does he know that there's a lav to eat truma when you're tummy? And for the Gemara, nafkale, he learns it out. Ish bizera har v'utzurua oizav. So ish, a man or female, doesn't matter as long as you're progenitor, offspring of the family of Aharon. You're not supposed to, and you tzurua and izav. It says over there that you're not supposed to eat truma. What's the pasuk? It's not in this. It's a pasuk over here with tzurav. It's this pasuk over here will imply that you're not allowed to eat truma because it's referring to something that could normally be eaten by a woman, and shlomim is not eaten by a chatas is not eaten by a bas kohen, so it's referring to truma, and the Torah is telling you that if a kohen or kehenes is tamei, should not eat the truma. So therefore, clearly, there's another pasuk that teaches you you're not allowed to eat truma when you're tamei. The idach. So Rabbi Yochanan, what does he do with that pasuk? Ahu lachila v'ahu l'negia. So he says the kol kodesh loisiga means you're not that you're not allowed to eat truma, you're not allowed to touch truma when you're tummy. You don't get kares. And the pasuk of eating, this pasuk is you're not allowed to eat truma when you're tummy. So ish b'zera haran teaches you're not allowed to eat truma. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish, now the Gemara says. So what did Rish Lakish? Bottom line is Rish Lakish used b'chol kodesh loisiga to teach you an hazara that somebody who is tamei is not allowed to eat shlomim. It's coming to teach you that idea. It's teaching you that a tamei is not allowed to even touch kachim. Not that you'll get kares if you touch kachim, but you're going to get malchus. The Itma we learned tamei shenaga b'kodesh shlakish amar loike Rabbi Yochanan amar eina loike shlakish amar loike b'chol kodesh loisika. It says when you're tamei, don't touch. Now here, Rish Lakish is clearly learning kol kodesh means not to touch truma when you're tamei, not to touch shlomim when you're tamei. Rabbi Yochanan amar ein loike hu azar lo truma hudasa. That b'chol kodesh doesn't refer to shlomim; it refers to truma. You're not allowed to touch truma when you're tamei, but I don't have a lav to teach you that you're not allowed to touch kachim when you're tamei. It's funny because Rabbi Yochanan is going to seem to say that when you touch truma when you're tamei, you get malchus, but when you touch kachim when you're tamei, you won't get malchus because there is no lav. And says the Gemara, tamei shenaga. So then how could? But bottom line is, how could Rish Lakish? Where does Rav Shlokish have the azhara, the warning that you're not allowed to eat kachim when you're tamei? Tamei shenaga, but so you learn two ideas from that pasuk. Rav Shlokish is going to say you learn two ideas from that pasuk. Tamei shenaga b'kodesh b'da'apke rachman b'lash negia. Since the Torah says don't touch kachim, so it's obviously the Torah is referring to not touching kachim, and azhara ishkish kodesh the migdash that the oichel. To how do you know you're not allowed to eat kachim? It's you're going to have a juxtaposition between kodesh and migdash. Ma'adach The Torah writes b'chol kodesh lesigdash vel mugdash lekamai leisavai. So they both must be talking about chorus aspects, and we know touching kachim you don't get chorus. So b'chol kodesh leisiga includes not only not touching kachim, but it also includes not eating kachim, because it must be something that has to do with getting kachim, with getting chorus. So again, the bottom line is, Rish Lakish has this pasuk, B'chol kodesh leisiga, which teaches you, I guess, two ideas. One, you're not allowed to touch kachim when you're tamei, but more important, you have a lav not to eat kachim when you're tamei. Says the Gemara, Vakate lahachiyu also, does it come to teach you that idea? According to Rish Lakish, Hahuma bayil, I still need B'chol kodesh leisiga, l'tamei she'achol b'sar kodesh lifnei zrikas damim. A kamei that eats the holy meat before they sprinkle the blood on his mizbeach. The Itma we learned, Tamish Achal B'sar Kodesh Lifnei Zrikas Damim, Shlakish Ama Laika, Rabbi Yochanan Ama Aina Laika. Shlakish says you get Malchus, Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get Malchus. Shlakish Ama Laika, the Chol Kodesh Leisiga, don't touch any kachim, Laishna Lifnei Zika, Laishna Lachas Zrika. Doesn't matter if you ate the after the Zrika of Dam, you're not allowed to eat that shlami meat, or even before the Zrika's Dam, if it's Tamei shlami meat, you're not allowed to eat it. You don't get malchus. If they didn't sprinkle the blood yet, you're not going to get malchus. So now the question is, Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan the Tamei Damakra Tumasik Tumasik V'Chiksiv Tumasik Lachas Richid Ksiv. Since this is Gzeir Shava, so you could say that B'chol Kodesh Leisiga is talking about only after the Zrika. But the bottom line is, so Rish Lakish used this pasuk b'chol kodesh leisiga to teach you another idea that a tamei that eats b'sar kodesh before they were misrikas damim, you'll also get malchus. And says the Gemara, ahu ahimi b'chol kodesh, any type of kodesh nafka. That's kodesh. It means b'chol, whether it's lifnei zrika or after zrika. And then the Gemara concludes, Tanya kabos Rish Lakish b'chol kodesh leisiga azara la'oichel. Here you see it. It's an azara for somebody who's going to eat kachim when they're tamei, and not that like Rabbi Yochanan, you learned azara from Gzeir Shava. Maybe it's only telling you you're not allowed to touch, but how do I know that b'chol kodesh leisiga includes not allowed to eat? Just like coming into the base of Migdash, when you're tamei, you get kares. It must be talking about b'chol kodesh leisiga. It must be also talking about something that you do that you're going to get kares for. If it's only talking about negia, touching kachim, are you going to get kares? Where's the Torah tell you that you're going to get kares for touching truma? By eating truma when you're eating kachim when you're tamei, the Torah says you're going to get kares. So b'chol kodesh leisiga is the lav of eating kachim, not just touching kachim when you're tamei, but also eating kachim when you're tamei, and ela bechila. And there, the Torah is telling you that that's the lav for not eating kachim, eating kachim when you're tamei, and that's how Rish Lakish has a brisa that supports his idea of the azar menayim b'chol kodesh lo yisiga. Okay, we will stop over here. That's Hashem.